Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Maura Rossman. I'm the health officer for Howard County Health Department and emceeing this event. Thank you, everyone, for coming and supporting us as we talk about our It's Okay to Ask expansion. Before we start, I want to acknowledge elected officials who are here. We have Maryland State Delegate Courtney Watson. We have County Councilperson Christiana Rigby. I don't know if I think that's it that's here right now. And of course, we have our great county executive, Dr. Ball. A few of us will be making remarks. And so without further ado, I want to introduce our county executive, Dr. Calvin Ball.
Well, thank you, Dr. Rossman, and I just want to publicly thank Dr. Rossman and her entire team for being such fantastic partners in helping us prioritize our physical and mental health and ensuring that in a time with the pandemic, we also stay focused on all of the other aspects that our community needs to be healthy and well. Now, during the past 2 years, COVID-19 has created significant mental health challenges across all demographics. Isolation, anxiety, financial hardship, fear for the well-being of friends and family, and unfortunately loss. But even before the pandemic, we recognized the increasing need to reduce the stigma of mental health challenges and provide better access to mental health services. In 2019, we launched the It's Okay to Ask campaign with our health department in response to alarming data. Suicide was the leading cause of death for our young people, ages 15 to 19, between 2014 and 2016 in Howard County. I was glad to work with everyone on that original campaign because of its clear purpose of destigmatizing mental health and reaching populations often ignored or neglected. Mental health conditions affect people of all ages, races, ethnicities, professions, and economic status. I think we've got another friend there. All right, now I think we're ready. The best place to begin if you or someone you know is having difficult time is just with a conversation. Today, we're acting to reach more of our vulnerable residents, expanding our mental health campaign to ensure that everyone knows it's okay to ask. Our campaign will once again encourage our residents to seek help, look out for one another, and always remember that it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask someone how they're doing. It's okay to ask for help. We've all faced challenges over the past 2 years, and we know that for so many in our community, our mental health has suffered. According to the CDC, approximately 40% of U.S. adults reported struggling with mental health or substance use during the height of the pandemic. In addition, throughout the pandemic, more than 1 out of 3 adults in our nation reported feeling anxious or depressed. The numbers are equally troubling for our young people. 1 in 5 high school students seriously considered suicide in the past 12 months, and this was disproportionately high for Black students at 37% and our LGBTQ students at approximately 57%. In early 2021, emergency department visits in the United States for suspected suicide attempts were more than 50% higher for adolescent girls and 4% higher for adolescent boys compared to the same time in early 2019. So again, I'd like to thank our entire health department for taking this critical campaign to the next level. At the precise time that our residents and especially our young people are so in need for help. This campaign is also coming at a time when more services will be available for our young people who need that help. Just last month, I announced more than $2 million in new funding for mental health for our school system and the local children's board, which will allow enhanced mental health services to be offered to every student in every school in Howard County. These initiatives are tremendous examples of how organizations in Howard County come together to solve complex problems and make sure that people are seen. Everyone deserves access to mental health care. And it's our collective responsibility to protect the health and safety of all of our residents' mental health. So for all of those struggling in our community, please know you're not alone. It's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to ask a family member or a friend if they need help. Our actions as a community, not just at the governmental level, but at the individual level, will help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ball. Next, I want to introduce Mariana Israelson, Executive Director of Grassroots Crisis Intervention Center.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here. My name is Dr. Mariana Israelson. I'm the Executive Director of Grassroots Crisis Intervention. I really would like to appreciate the moment that we're living right now and how thankful I am to Dr. Calvin Ball and the Health Department to take this effort to the highest level and really understand the needs of the community. We are in a moment in which mental health is taking a whole new level for the people that live in Howard County, and it's time for us to act. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to this effort and the partnership the Grassroots received from Dr. Ball and the Health Department. It is fair to say that it's been a very difficult 2.5 years. All of you have been here with us, and we have been suffered together through this process. At Grassroots, we have met everybody, and we're open 24/7, ready for anyone to walk in. We're ready for anyone that is need and help. We're here for you. We welcome, we're free, we're available, and we have access. People of all races, people of any age, if you are in need, there is a place for you. There's also a phone number, 24/7, ready to answer your call. You just need to call. It is okay to pick up the phone. It is okay to say, hello, I just want to talk to somebody. We are there for you. Our phone number, 410-531-6677, is ready for you. And pretty soon, it's going to be 3 digits, 988. That is a fabulous thing for all of us. We are very excited for this opportunity to continue to be able to serve Howard County residents in a fastest, efficient way. At Grassroots, we have seen the effects of the pandemic. We have seen how individuals feel isolated, depressed, anxious, fearful. Our calls have increased 80% in the last 2.5 years. That means that we went from receiving about 2,000 to 3,000 calls a month to 5,000 to 5,500 calls a month. That tells you in very simple words what our community is struggling and the moments that we're living. So this campaign comes at a perfect time for us to say, it is okay. We're here for you. Call us, walk in. We are ready to help you. All people are invited to call Grassroots. All people are invited to walk in. All are welcome, all the time. Doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter the time. We have somebody ready for you. It is okay to ask for help, and Grassroots is ready to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Israelson. I'll now give a few words, and first I want to thank again everyone for coming, and also to acknowledge the Health Department staff who helped organize this along with Howard County government, and our behavioral health staff. If you'll please raise your hand, acknowledge you. Those are actually the heroes who do the work that make this possible. So in 2019, as you heard, the Health Department embarked on a journey to address the issue of teen suicide in Howard County. At that time, the leading cause of death among our teens aged 15 to 19 was suicide. We took a multifaceted approach to this issue with an awareness campaign called It's Okay to Ask, which featured a broad range of teens. A short while later, we implemented Sources of Strength, an evidence-based peer leadership and suicide prevention program for high school students in Howard County. The program connects peer leaders with adult advisors who share hope, help, and strength-based messages in the community. The program is now in every high school in the county. We are now realizing the impact of the pandemic on mental health, as you've heard. In 2020, our lives were abruptly disrupted and in some cases forever changed. Workplaces sent people home, some lost jobs, schools were closed, most isolated at home and socially distanced from others to feel safe. Frontline workers were stressed and overwhelmed, and there was enormous loss. Data from the pandemic demonstrates not only a need to continue to outreach to youth, but to outreach to adults who are experiencing increased stress and isolation. In the United States, 1 in 4 suffer from a diagnosable mental health condition in any given year, and 75% of these conditions begin by age 24. In 2021, Howard County Health Assessment Report found that 35% of our residents reported feeling depressed or lonely in the previous 2 weeks. Furthermore, 50% of residents reported nervous or anxious in the previous 2 weeks. Nearly a quarter of survey participants aged 18 to 24 reported feeling down, depressed, hopeless, nearly every day. Given these results, we know that working with just one group was not enough. Hence the expansion of It's Okay to Ask. This campaign raises awareness and reduces stigma associated with mental health and suicide across the lifespan, across races and ethnicities, across genders, and across professions. The health department worked with many of our community partners who are here today, including members of Healthy Minds and Suicide Prevention Coalition, the local Behavioral Health Authority, and several other local groups were consulted on messaging and images for this new campaign. The expanded It's Okay to Ask aims to encourage residents to have conversations about mental health and to promote help-seeking behaviors. It also seeks to connect the community to information and credible resources that resonate best with them. As you can see by the posters we have here today, each campaign image includes a QR code that will take the viewer to culturally responsive resources housed on the Howard County Department website. We will be promoting this material in a variety of ways, from flyers in grocery stores to print advertisements on social media and digital advertising campaign that can be seen while viewing the internet. Our goal is that through these relatable images, we can lessen the stigma about mental health and get people talking. Mental health conditions affect all of us, all people, all ages, races, ethnicities, professions, and economic status. The best place to begin, if you or someone you know is having a difficult time, is with a simple conversation. It's okay to ask someone how they are doing, and it's okay to ask for help. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Karsten of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Howard County. He is a volunteer and board member and representing NAMI.
Thank you, Dr. Rossman. Can you guys hear me okay? You can hear me okay, right? And thank you to the other speakers as well, both for being here and for the incredibly important work that they're doing. My name is Karsten, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today for a couple reasons. One, as Dr. Rossman mentioned, I am a volunteer for NAMI, and I recently joined their board at the end of last year. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with NAMI, we're, as Dr. Rossman said, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We are the largest grassroots mental health organization in the US. We focus on education, we focus on advocacy, we focus on public awareness. We also offer programs to people who are either navigating pretty serious mental health issues themselves or people who are trying to help loved ones navigate the same. One thing I always stress when I do talks like this is that our programs are free of charge. Mental illness does not delineate between who belongs in what groups, neither do we. Doesn't matter if you're a member or not, we take all comers. I think relevant to today, I'll share a little bit about my own experience navigating my mental health. And where programs like It's Okay to Ask fit in, or would have fit in when I was a kid. I've been navigating my own mental health since I was a kid. The first time I felt acutely suicidal, I was in 4th grade. What are we in 4th grade? Like 8 or 9, so I was that age. And not a year went by until I was 45, and that was, roughly almost 4 years ago, where I didn't very seriously, at least once a year, consider killing myself. That's just kind of the nature of the wiring that I had. And, coming up as a kid, there was very little awareness of how mental health works, or in my case, doesn't work. And there was still very much the stigma of, if you're feeling a certain kind of way, there's something wrong with you. It's your problem. And amazing programs and organizations like Grassroots and like NAMI, programs like It's Okay to Ask, they either didn't exist in the late 70s, early 80s, or my parents and I weren't aware of them. We didn't really know where to look either. Somebody years ago said something to me that really stuck, and I'll share it with you. It's a phrase that's kind of followed me along for a while. What we tell ourselves is what we hear. What we tell ourselves is what we hear. And so, given my wiring, what I told myself was some version of, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. As I got older, you're a lousy partner. Older still, you suck at being a parent. It was always some variation of whatever good thing you have going for you, you are going to mess it up, and you will somehow manage to always disappoint everybody who loves you. It's a terrible internal monologue. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that was not fun, and it was just kind of the standard inner voice that accompanied me as I was growing up and as I became an adult. So how did I cope, or at least try to? And in my case, and everybody's mental health journey is different, but in my case, I compartmentalized. I've got a bit of an acting background, so I turned it into a role, right? If I'm not actually a functional human being, I can play one on TV, and so I did, right? And I did that for years. I often, when I speak, tend to use the analogy of the emotional bank account. So everything we do costs us something, right? And for people who are lucky enough to run a surplus, you don't really have to think about it. You just do your stuff, and you've got enough energy to do that. For people like me, you do have to think about it, because even small things take a lot of energy. And so I was always running in the red. I was always running a deficit. I would have, if I think about it, 35 years of navigating mental health, maybe thousands of days in aggregate where I barely had the mojo to just slide my feet out of bed and put them next to the bed in the morning and start my day, and then white knuckle my way through the day in the hopes that A, I made it through, and B, I could rinse and repeat the next day. There was a lot of that. And as I got older, did things get better? What do you guys think? Hard pass. No, they did not. And that internal monologue just got harsher, right? In my family, we live for a fairly long period of time, right? It's normal for us to make it well into our 90s. And so what that inner voice said was, well, this is terrible. And I feel terrible. At 40, 50 more years of this, A, can I handle it? B, and this is like the inflection point for me, was, do I even want to handle that? Given how I felt for, however many years have passed feeling this way. And that was an inflection point for me. The wheels absolutely came off the bus in 2018, around my 45th birthday. I'm closing in on 49 now. Panic attacks, this thing tells me I was sleeping about 90 minutes a night for months on end. That's never good for anything. I knew that if something doesn't change drastically, I don't make it through the month. And what does that mean concretely when somebody like me doesn't make it through the month? Well, A, there's no 46th birthday for Karsten. And things like there are 3 table settings at the dinner table and not 4. On and on and on ad nauseum, right? And so I have to say, it's kind of surreal being out here in this gorgeous day in front of a handful of people I have never met before, talking about what basically is like 35 years of internal darkness, but it's also kind of cool. And I also have to acknowledge the tremendous luck and privilege that I, as an individual dealing with mental illness, have had, right? I had financial resources. I could leave a job, focus on myself. I got a spot in an intensive outpatient program locally that was critical for me. If anybody's watching from Johns Hopkins Bayview, you guys are rock stars. You saved my life, and thank you. I've got, I had insurance. I've got people around me who love me and were rooting for me and invested in me when I was not capable of doing that myself. So I had a lot of things going for me that many of us don't. And yet, in all of that, for several decades, I was barely making it, right? Like my head was barely above water. And why is that? It's because, I didn't see clear to a place where I could start unraveling this mental landscape. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what to ask. I didn't have the tools to navigate any of this or even start a conversation to do so until way later in my life, as well into my late 30s. That's what a lot of people like me can't find, that entry point. And everything is overwhelming all the time. It's really difficult to find an entry point. And programs like It's Okay to Ask can provide that, right? As a program, as we heard, and as the previous speaker said, this was initially geared toward teens, which is the right place to start. Would have been a useful thing for me, and it would have changed the trajectory of my life for sure. What I was thrilled to hear was that It's Okay to Ask was expanded to a broader set of the Howard County population, across ages, across ethnicities, and for me as the child of immigrants, non-native English-speaking immigrants who was born here, across language barriers. It's something that inclusivity and that broadening of access is key. I spoke about the relative privilege that I have in all of this and the things that went my way that don't for many of us. In programs like this, It's Okay to Ask, expanding their reach, it I think acknowledges something really critical. We talked about teens earlier. Those stats are clear. It's anybody not aware of that as a mental health pandemic or epidemic at this point is simply not paying attention. What's easy to forget in our general daily grind as just humans in the world is that we do carry the cumulative weight of the last couple of years in our bones. And so programs like this and investments like this and awareness like this and press conferences like this are more important now than they ever have been. I'll close with a couple things. I always run long. It's a superpower of mine, apparently. Like I said earlier, I'm happy to be here for a bunch of obvious reasons. One of them is that I got to this point, which is pretty excellent. And I've gotten to a point where I can say that the emotional bank account is actually pretty full. Like, I've got the tools to navigate this. I will always have depression. It doesn't go away, but I can plan the work and I can work the plan, and that's pretty solid. Programs like It's Okay to Ask are a critical entry point. They would have definitely changed the trajectory of my life if I'd had access or was aware of something like this. And they create an entry point for critical conversations at critical inflection points in people's lives. I will stop there. I appreciate your listening. Thank you for your time. Please spread the word. Grateful to be here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Scherer, for sharing your story, and we too are really glad you are here today and able to share that story. This concludes our press conference, so we are open if there are any questions.
I have one question. The 2 years where the students weren't in the classroom, we talked about isolation, but in a school system which performs at such a high level, where expectations are very high, did that at all play into this, that students also were frustrated at maybe not performing to the same exact level they had pre-COVID?
Well, every student would be individual in any family, right? But I think there's probably a multitude of factors that we're trying to sort out. I think part of students felt isolated too, right? They weren't with their peers. The learning, not ideal perhaps for many, learning via Zoom or WebEx or whatever that was. The stress on parents having to figure out either algebra or English or whatever that is that it's far too long ago for me to figure out. And then, yes, frustrating on teachers, grades, etc. So I think all of this is, as I think we said, multifaceted for different people. We're able to manage it differently in families. And I think as we reflect on the past 2 years, and it's not over yet, right? The importance of being together and connectedness, and even seeing you here in person, that the effects of that isolation and it's all hunkering down on our mental health physically, obviously there was a reason to do that. We're trying to prevent ourselves from getting physically sick from COVID. But the toll on our mental health, we're just unraveling. And so I encourage everyone, for whatever reason, and mental health issues preceded COVID, right? It just sort of peeled back the onion or exacerbated certain things. Really, especially Mr. Shearer's story, this disease affects just about every one of us, all families. And the more we talk about it and obviously get treatment, because I don't think I mentioned that about 80% of people who even are diagnosed with a mental health condition don't get treatment for up to 5 or 10 years. We need to get treatment when you need it, earlier, so we can intervene earlier.